Peace and blessings, everyone. This is Raisa Kiwala, the divorced Muslim coach. And today our reflection is on day 11. And what we're going to go deeper into today is Shukr, or gratitude and abundance, versus scarcity, fear, and lack. And knowing that feeling contentment, feeling feeling abundant, having a life of abundance are all blessings from Allah. And feeling like you don't have enough, feeling like you're not enough, feeling the scarcity, no matter how much you have, it comes from Shaytan. So I'm going to really kind of break that down today. And, there are many people who, including myself, that I have experienced that no matter how much you have or accumulate, whether it's material possessions or blessings in your life, if you're not grateful for it or appreciate with your heart and your mind and your tongue and your actions, it doesn't matter how much you attain. It doesn't matter how much fame or fortune or riches you attain. You will always feel poor. You will always feel this sense of lack and scarcity, no matter how much you have. And we see that in neighborhoods and people who are extremely wealthy and have many blessings of food, a home, shelter, safety, security, education, jobs, all the things, all the big things. And yet are sad and depressed and are not feeling that they have enough. And it creates an experience and a reality for them of just lack and fear and scarcity. And again, that all comes from thought in the moment, how we are thinking about what we have, what we don't have. That is going to create our reality. And for example, how could there be, refugees that I met and I worked with who were coming off of a boat from Turkey, and they had smiles on their faces. And first thing that they did, I'll never forget this, when I was in Greece helping the refugees come off the boats, the first thing they did is they did sajda, or they thanked Allah. They were so grateful and happy. Then they took out their cell phones, took their selfies. But that was the first thing, to feel it. Not just, oh, I'm grateful, I'm grateful, I'm grateful. We hear that, a lot of that too, but what does it mean? Do you feel it in your core, in your essence? And thought is what is creating your experience of life, whether you're feeling lack and scarcity and fear, or you're feeling abundance and contentment and happiness. It's all being created by your thought in the moment, or how you're thinking about your situation. So some things that really are helpful is looking at what we have rather than what we don't have, looking at what's going well rather than focusing on what is not working. And that's just different ways of thinking, right? Looking at people who have less than you rather than people who have more than you. Because if you're always looking at people who have more than you, you're never going to be happy in what you have. And so even when you do get that contentment is not going to be there. Because how many times do we hear, oh, if I get the new iPhone X, I'm going to be so happy. And what happens when you get it? That it's fleeting. You're not happy anymore because you're looking for the next new thing that is going to bring you this state of happiness. Nothing will bring you this. Nothing, no one will bring you the state of happiness. It comes from your thoughts. Happiness, feeling happy, content, comes from your thought in the moment, how you're thinking about the subject. And so, Allah tells us that, and science is proving this now, right? That people are more happier and content in their lives when they have a gratitude practice. They're practicing gratitude. They're feeling and believing and living in their gratitude. And Allah tells us that when you're, when you are thankful and grateful to me, then I will give you more. I'll keep increasing you. And he also tells us that a believer is one who is grateful, and a disbeliever or a kufr is one who is not grateful. He equates the two together. And that is a real powerful thing to remember too, that if we're in a state of ingratitude, then it's comparable to being a disbeliever, which we don't want to fall into. Whereas when we are always in this state of alhamdulillah, thankful, appreciative, no matter what is going on, alhamdulillah, I can see, I can breathe, I can walk, I can talk, I can swallow my saliva rather than it being filled up in my mouth, appreciating those things, you're already in a good mood. And Allah tells us, then remember me, I will remember you. Be grateful to me and do not reject me. That's in Quran chapter 2 verse 152. He's telling us, remember me and be grateful to me, and I will be there for you. I will, you remember me, I will remember you. And it's so true. It's like however way we have Allah and we see him in our life is how he shows up. And another thing that brings to light in looking at gratitude, abundance versus scarcity and lack is remember that it's Shaytan's primary mission is to make human beings ungrateful. From the very beginning, from him refusing to bow down to Prophet Adam, and Satan saying that certainly I will come to them from before them and from behind them and from the right and from the left, and then Allah shall find most of them not thankful, and that is in chapter 7 verse 17. And do we want to fall into that category of most of us not being thankful? But when we're aware of our own thoughts, when we're aware of our level of consciousness, our self-consciousness, we can check into ourselves and say, am I falling into this trap of just being not grateful? And the many ways that we can express our gratitude is, one is through the heart, one is through our tongue, and one is through our actions. And when we're living in this state of gratitude with all three, that is how we are going to be experiencing life as enough, as abundance, in terms of money, in terms of friends, in terms of resources, in terms of times, in terms of family. Everything changes. Just the whole experience changes. And I want you to try this and see this, because our feelings are always coming from thought in the moment, right? It's not your circumstance, not your situation, what type of house you live in, what type of car you drive, what type of salary you have. It's not because of that. It's you're thinking about it. You're thinking about the type of house you live in. Is it a $1 million house, or is it an apartment? How are you thinking about yourself in those situations? And I know that, going through my divorce, I lived in a huge house that was fancy and that was big, and it had all the bling and the fancy stuff and the great stuff, and there's nothing wrong with that. But going from that place, and I thought that I would miss all that stuff, and I thought that it would take away from me, and and being conscious of how I was not as grateful. But now, living in a condo or a townhouse in a smaller place, it's not about the surroundings of the environment. It's about what's inside of here. That makes a difference. Being grateful for the space that I have, the richness that I have, right? Because when you get divorced, those things happen. You go from living in a bigger house to a smaller house, from being a family unit of 2 people and kids to just one adult. And I realized that even though that was my reality and my circumstance, it didn't define how I felt. Because sometimes people can feel sorry for you and say, oh, you had to sell your house, or you don't have this and you don't have that, this material good or that material good, or this support and that support. But when we live in that space of gratitude and appreciating Allah, when Allah takes away certain things, He gives you so many things to replace that are better. And the richness that is given in those blessings is not comparable. Replacing them with, faith and reliance and connection to Allah and relationships, solid relationships. You can't buy that anywhere, even if you wanted to. And I realized that even if the whole world was against me, as long as I had Allah on my side, I was golden. And it didn't matter. It didn't matter. I had it made. So my message today is having that gratitude, no matter where you are in your life, brings you riches that you can't buy anywhere. And my invitation to you today is, after your prayer, I found that this practice helped me. After every prayer of yours, you do your adhkar, you do your remembrance, your tasbih, and write down or become conscious of 3 things that you are grateful for. Any 3 things. After every prayer, prayer, that comes out to 15 things a day. You can write them, you can speak them aloud in your mind, but just bring them to mind, a consciousness of it. You can purchase a beautiful journal to your eye and write it down. Put it underneath your pillow with a pen so you don't forget, because sometimes we forget these things. It's so simplistic, but we forget it. But this way it forces you to write it down and build a habit of that. You'll find that when you're constantly living in this, life totally changes for you. I hope that was helpful. I can't wait to hear your insights and your takeaways, and I can't wait to see you next time on day 11. Take care, peace and blessings.